what do you think it looks like for us to have, as humans, to have an imagination when we maybe have those moments where we feel left out? Because I'm imagining, like we teach high school kids, and I feel like they have it so much harder than we did, where we kind of we hear the story of the thing we got left out from. They're watching like a literal 30-second play-by-play story, like Instagram stories or reels or whatever of that thing playing out. What would you say to maybe a high school kid who feels maybe like you felt, or feels like I have all these friends coming in and out of my life, or there's certain friends that I feel threatened by, or there's certain friends that I don't want to be friends with because, they might take something from me, or like there's just like a tension there kind of like in the film. What would your advice be for them? And is, what, from a Christian perspective, just from a pure like human experience perspective, like what would you offer?
So this may have been like the thing that really hit me the hardest, because, Woody experiencing Buzz coming into his life out of nowhere, unexpected. He was like the gift that was hidden in the closet too. Like he thought he was clear. Buzz comes in. Woody sit with this bomb of, oh my gosh, like this new toy is now Andy's favorite. And I've found myself like so many times, like in my life, just I forget when something new comes into my life, a new person or a new situation. I am so quick to just like write it off and get angry and think it's going to be for the worst. Like you said, kind of trained to think negatively about things. And I'll maybe even treat a person, poorly because of that, or make assumptions about them, like go even way further and think, oh, this person is out to get me and they're going to ruin my life and whatever. And maybe not never, but so often I'm doing this where my perspective is negative, and I need to learn more and more. I'm slowly learning this, I think, to like see it from a perspective of this can be a blessing if I let God use it in the right way. And so like you're, asking what would you say to maybe like high schoolers that we see, I see this all the time, honestly, in class, like friend dynamics changing and whatnot. You never know like how God can use a person. You never know like that person's background until you fully know it. Like every time I assume something about somebody, I'm usually way completely the opposite wrong. And I feel like such a jerk. And so, I felt so much like Woody in the fact that like Buzz comes in, wants to take his place, right? Like immediately the reaction should be like thinking of myself, like, this is someone that God's placed into my life, or a tough situation. This is a situation God's placed in my life. And how can this be something that I can use for his glory? Because he put it there, right? If God is in control of all, then he put that there for a reason in my life, or that person there for a reason. And so clearly there can be good that can come from it if my perspective is right. And that person's not going to be out to get me, I'm sure, like trying to ruin my life or take all my friends and whatnot. Like, so it's just like, no matter who it is, always trying to keep that perspective of like, this is another human being who I am called to love, or a situation that I'm called to persevere through. And it's difficult. Like I forget so quickly. All the time I'm like, man, I just assumed this person or whatever was like not gonna be good. But anyways, that's sort of, more personal conviction from the movie for sure. But that's what I would say is just it's amazing what God can do when you just submit to what he has in store for you, to let, just say like, use me however you will with this situation or person or whatever hardship. So
once to use some evidence and to kind of transition into our next question, because I was even thinking through like, okay, how does it happen that Woody interprets Buzz's presence as a threat? Because I think there are people who are nefarious and do have ill intentions and
that is true.
Actively try to seek out, I'm going to sabotage this. And maybe they know why, maybe they don't, maybe it's trauma, maybe it's because they get a kick out of it. Like there are those people. There are also people where I think in the movie, more accurate to what you're saying, Buzz is just being Buzz and people gravitate towards him.
Yeah.
And Woody is angry at that because he's not Buzz. He's Woody, and Woody doesn't have wings. Woody doesn't have cool boots and like, a space helmet. Yeah. His own spaceship and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's Buzz's to speak to like a more tangible example of how God uses something like that. It's Buzz's presence that forces Woody over the course of the movie to contend with his jealousy, to not say that, oh, my jealousy is valid and it's good. And, I'm totally legit to have this. It's actually him realizing through his relationship with Buzz and even seeing Buzz break emotionally and mentally that it's like, wow, Buzz is just like me. Like Buzz has no clue what's going on. Like his life is just as much a mess as mine. So kind of transitioning to our second question. So for me personally, did we do the Enneagram thing at school when you were around?
I was not there for that.
Okay.
No.
Fascinating thing. It's just kind of a personality thing. I know it's kind of contentious in Christian circles, so maybe, like whatever. But it's been helpful for me to have some kind of clarifying language to not exactly who I am, but to understand kind of how I think and feel. And one of the things for like my number, how the Enneagram works is my personality type can be very quick to latch on to identities for security. And so for me, when I watched this movie, it was within the last like 2 years. And I just remember Buzz's identity crisis just crushing me because it was like, I am watching myself through a animated spaceman toy. And so realizing and seeing how like Buzz had this vision of who he was, and, that just gets absolutely decimated by the truth, not even by like Woody or something else, but by reality. Like it's the truth that you are not actually a real spaceman. And he's like, and just like can't take it. So this shattered identity really kind of gets at like the dangers of what we put our identity and stuff into. And I know that's kind of a cliche Christian thing to talk about is like, our identities in Christ and in God and stuff like that. But what do you think Buzz's internal journey teaches us about the dangers of like living in a false identity or living in a reality that isn't accurate or unwilling to be challenged?
Yeah. I mean, Buzz is definitely ignorant of the fact that he's a toy for a while, thinks he's a space ranger. And, they say like ignorance is bliss, but like once you are no longer ignorant, you're usually then like a fool in some way. Or at least, in Buzz's case, he thought he was one thing, turned out to be another. And so I think it's important, like what I kind of learned from this is like, you need to take a step back. You need to try to see more than just yourself and the picture around you and the world around you. But also I think something that I've not really done much is like sort of like seeking out others for perspective of what they see of myself and my situation sometimes, like people that I trust, going to them and saying like, hey, like, do you think I'm this? Cause I see myself as this. And, in my own mind, I can think that forever. A certain thing, like, let's say I think I'm a very generous person, just as an example. And so, maybe I need to ask other people, like, hey, do you see this in myself, this quality? And maybe they'll be like, oh, no way. You're total, so stingy. And I'll be like, my earth will be shattered.
Yeah.
But if I wouldn't have gone to people, I wouldn't have found that out, right? So that's something I kind of learned from, from that question and from that situation from Buzz was just like to, even, not just take a step back on myself and self-evaluate, but to even seek out the counsel of others that I trust. In that and figuring out, because my perspective is not going to be right all the time, especially of myself, and so finding others that I can trust and go to is something that I really took from that. Thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and I think pulling some scripture into it, there's the, again, very churchy phrase like iron sharpens iron, and something that I've been seeing more and more, and I think it's very accurate after COVID, and we just saw the really intense damage of isolation and being alone. And I think one of the things that can happen from that is we talk about like echo chambers in social media where you just fill your brain and your feed with stuff that you agree with and you cycle through the stuff that you don't. I think that can happen internally for us too. And so I think that's a really powerful idea that I'm even feeling challenged to be like, I don't know that I do that very often. And I think, if I were to be honest, it's because I don't want to, because if I ask and if I say, or go to, Jake B in the middle of the hallway during lunch and I say, Mr. B, I feel like I am a very loving and kind teacher. Like, and I'm coming from a place of, posturing, and I'm like, it would be nice if you affirmed that for me. Like, what do you think? And you're like, homie, I hate to tell you this, but you're not. That would probably really hurt. But that is what sharpening iron is you are scraping the rough edges against something else, but it is in that experience that you are becoming a more sharp and full version of you, or you're able to face now like, wow, no, he was right. Like, I'm not that way. And thank God that he said something, because now I have the chance to grow from it. Yeah. Like even just seeing, like Woody and Buzz, like the fact that Woody chooses, because he could have, and this would have been a really interesting way for the Toy Stories franchise to go, but when he's under the box and Woody or Buzz is there strapped to the rocket, Woody still has the choice to leave Buzz and watch him get blown up. Yeah. Like, he still has the ability to leave Buzz in the dust, and he doesn't. And so I didn't anticipate asking this question, but after I say that, and that's thinking of that scene, why do you think Woody chose in that moment to save Buzz or to try and help him?
I think the reality of their situation, like, man, we're at the end of our road. Like, I mean, at least Buzz was, and Woody was not in a good space in Sid's house. He couldn't escape. I think that, like, long night of self-reflection and thinking, and he saw Buzz so broken. And I think Woody's he's a caring, nurturing character. He takes care of all the toys. And so I think he may have really felt for Buzz in that moment, seeing how broken he was after realizing he wasn't the Space Ranger. And, and after a while, I think he just came to his senses of like, man, I was a real jerk to this toy who I didn't even know. And so I think he just, I don't know. It's so interesting because all movie long, he's trying to, get rid of him. He tried to kill him at one point, whatever.
Right. He literally did. Yeah.
Push him out a window or whatever he did. So it's just like, we all come to realizations like that in different moments and for different reasons. And, so it was in that moment, I think he really he felt Buzz's brokenness and felt for that and was like, he's a good thing, like a good toy. He can be a benefit to Andy and to the other toys. And, I think he probably felt for the toys back in Andy's house and thought, they love Buzz. They want him here. And so if I can bring him back, then good for them and for Andy and for Buzz.
Yeah. I love that phrase that Woody saw his brokenness and his response was not, yeah, sucks, loser. Like, you're not a Space Ranger, suck it. Like it was, oh my gosh, like this poor guy, like that there was compassion that flowed out. And I think that's the message of Christ calling people to be in the midst of brokenness, right? Like that's why he was in the brokenness. It wasn't just to like be the thumbs up guy and like be happy and spreading joy. It was, if you are in the brokenness, you see how much people need. And if you're around all the people that don't think they're broken, like the Pharisees and some of those characters, what are they there for? Like they don't need anything. They don't, there is nothing that they need. There is nothing that they want. And they think they have it, or they think that they're the source of accomplishing it. And so to be in community with other broken people does have the potential, I know in a dangerous sense, to be like, you surround yourself with unhealthy relationships and they drag you further away. But I think the argument of the gospel and of the body of Christ and the church is you are equally broken people seeing each other's brokenness, not from a Pharisee lens to judge, but to call each other to a higher standard, or to see each other with really deep compassion that, wow, he's broken, I'm broken, that guy's broken, past is broken, everybody's broken. Oh,
Yeah.
everybody's broken. Who knew? Like, go figure.
Right.
So kind of transitioning again to our to another of our questions. And I'd be curious to hear from you, because I know we're kind of in a similar age range. I think I'm a few years older than you, but I know, are you technically Gen Z or are you millennial?
I believe I'm technically Gen Z.
You Gen Zers. You're ruining the world.
Just missed the cut.
You too,
I know.
Aiden. I'm going to throw a photo of you. I'm just kidding. I'm teasing you. Something that I hear a lot, or I remember in college hearing a lot and reading a lot, is, that like, oh, millennials are, they're all having their world shattered because life is hard and you got to work and all this stuff. But then there's other people on the other side who are kind of trying to defend the millennial generation. They're like, yeah, but like they heard this message that you just do whatever you want, or like do these things and these good things will happen. And now they've stepped into a world that doesn't let that happen. And so Buzz suffers from feeling that he is super special. He's a space ranger. He's not just a ranger, he's a space ranger.
Yep.
He ain't no just he isn't a toy sheriff. Like, he's the man.
The universe.
Yes,
the galaxy.
exactly. From Zurg and like, that's his jam. And from one side, this is a child movie, like I think there's a lot of discussion that I observe about kids, and do you kind of like break them down and like kind of just like life sucks until you die, and like, do you still that in, or how much mystery do you try to protect in them and stuff like that, and help them believe that they can do things and they can accomplish stuff. And what is the line between that and that and not empowering people to see what we feel like Buzz goes through, which is a false identity and a false reality? Like, how do we, especially as high school teachers, how do we encourage, but then also, sorry, I'm going to wait a second because I think Josh just texted me that he's here.